You know how death always comes when you least expect it, like when you're finally starting to enjoy your favorite character and then boom, the author remembers that they need some of that good old-fashioned trauma to fuel the story. Yeah, it kind of feels like that time is coming now, because for the first time since her introduction, Ada actually looks happy. She finally has what she's always wanted. Real, genuine connections. Sarada and Sumire, they aren't under her omnipotence effect of charm. They see her for who she really is. They accepted her. She has true friends. But that's exactly the problem, because the moment a character in a shonen series looks like they're finding peace, that's usually when the story is setting up it being snatched away. And in the latest Boruto Blue Vortex chapter, Ada might have unknowingly signed her own death warrant. She drops a single line, a throwaway to some readers that sounds suspiciously kind of like the type of thing that Jiraiya and Neji said in Naruto Part 1, which foreshadowed them dying in Part 2. She literally says, "If I had to die, I wouldn't have minded if it had been you two who killed me." And that, my friends, that is the sound of a death flag being planted in the ground and waving louder than Mamushi's incoming threat and Mamushi's growing questionable urges that he has when it comes to Ada's character. Join me in today's newest Naruto Explained video, where your OBC, your original Boruto chief, takes a look at the need to raise the stakes by using Ada's character and why the passing line in the chapter might have led to something more. Also, if you haven't seen the chapter review, that will be linked in the description box, and over on my Anime Explained channel, reviews for the newest Chainsman chapter and the mega review for Black Clover chapters 384, 385, 386, which just came out, will be linked in the end credits. So if you're a fan of either series, I highly recommend checking those out. So getting right into it, we got to start with how Ada's happiness is just truly being said to be a curse. Ada's entire arc revolved around one thing: connection. She was created for the purposes of the story to highlight the tools of desire. She has a power that she's cursed with that made everyone love her, but they never truly knew her. The love that she had, it wasn't necessarily organic. Her omnipotence, it didn't just grant affection where she can charm the hearts of others. It stole it. She could have all the adoration of the world, but none of it was real. And that was part of her suffering. And now she finally has true bonds. Sarada and Sumire, they're immune to her allure. And that immunity is precisely what allows her to experience sincerity for the first time in her life. But ironically, that's why she's now narratively expendable. Allow me to explain, because from a storytelling perspective, Ada's emotional arc, I could argue, is beginning to come full circle. She's reached her peace. She has acceptance, even her willingness to die for those who she cherishes. The only thing she hasn't had just yet is romantic love, but Ada wasn't just looking for romantic love, she wanted love, period. Sarada and Sumire are giving that to her. When a character reaches that kind of spiritual closure in a shonen, they're no longer being written towards something. The story is either setting up a Chekhov's gun that has to go off, or it's setting up a false gun, which is basically a red herring. You're meant to believe that it's something, but it doesn't truly go anywhere. You could argue this is the story setting up for Ada's story arc to conclude, or at least this portion of her story arc. It's tragic and it's also poetic. Ada's death, if it's handled correctly, could mark the end of her being a symbol of artificial love and the beginning of something more, a symbol of true choice and sacrifice, especially if it has something to do with Sarada and Sumire, two people she said that she didn't mind if they killed her if she ends up dying in order to protect either one of them because of what's going on with Mamushi. That could do something narratively. Now, Mamushi's arrival, it does have foreshadowed chaos that is sprinkled in. Again, this might very well be a false gun, because all she said specifically was that she wouldn't mind if one of them was the one that killed her. I'm just taking it a step further and saying, if she's already at the point where she doesn't mind if one of them killed her, how hard is it to make the connection that she would not be above making a sacrifice to protect two people that she values that much? I do want to stress that. So let's look at what the manga is potentially setting on the board. So Mamushi, the Shinju born from Bug's chakra, the embodiment of his obsessive love with Ada, his lust for Ada, is on his way to Konoha. He's got dirty magazines and baby oil, which totally gonna apologize to the female subscribers of this channel. Totally gonna make a dirty joke here, but Mamushi's looking at those magazines. He's got some NBA thoughts going on, not basketball. NBA stands for nut busting action. Given the way he was looking at those magazines in the last chapter, he's literally the inverse of Ada, where she represents the yearning for a genuine connection. Mamushi represents the destructive side of obsession. This is why I cannot wait for these two characters to interact on some meaningful way, because Ada is his natural mirror thematically. The danger, it isn't just physical, it's also again thematic, because if Mamushi ever gets anywhere near her, it will force Ada to face everything she once was, manipulative, desire, and isolated. Meanwhile, we have Kashin Koji already preparing for the inevitable battle, one that he says has incredible stakes to it. He's directly training Inojin with 10 directions, telling him he has to learn a critical jutsu in 2 days. A jutsu that Inojin in the future took an undisclosed amount of time to create. And Inojin, in classic overachiever fashion, he vows to master it in 1 day, and it's because he knew in another timeline this jutsu was made in response to Himawari falling in battle. So he's being driven by emotion. But here's the thing, rushing any type of a power in shonen, it doesn't typically end well. Whether it be Choji getting those pills, tapping into all that power that they gave him, and it ended up leading to consequences. Granted, he gets saved because of the journals that the Nar clan had on medicines that Tsunade used in order to heal him. And then you had Sasuke with the curse mark. There were consequences to that. And even Son Gohan trying to unlock Super Saiyan 2 in the Dragon Ball manga. The same with Vegeta in that same arc when they were going against Cell. Overconfidence or over-eagerness or reluctance to accept power and fate, it usually invites disaster. This sets the stage for a costly victory, one that might have someone pay the ultimate price. And let's be honest, Ada, out of all these characters, has the biggest death flag hanging over her right now. Because I know it wasn't just me, just from having read you guys' comments on the chapter review and on some of the subsequent videos. A lot of you guys are going like, hey, like them Ada stocks, we might need to start selling them because things look like they're just a little too rosy for her, like everything's going just a little bit too well. And I don't know if Ikimoto has the balls to do it. Like, this is different than killing a character like Yodo, who you hadn't seen in the manga for, what, 6 or 7 years, and you bring her back in. Her dying, it did serve a role. She played a beautiful purpose in that, but this is something completely different. This is a character in Ada who has consistently been in the manga since chapter 55, or rather chapter 56 of Boruto Naruto Next Generation. So you're talking about a character that's been around for a solid 4 years. Does Ikimoto have the balls to do what Kishimoto did, which is develop a character and then kill them off or put them in a very uncomfortable situation? All for the purposes of speeding up character arcs and growth for other characters, which this is what that would do. Basically, if you don't kill them off, there has to be a big enough of a payoff for whatever trials and tribulations they endure to make it feel warranted. Series that handle this very well, and I'm probably going to catch blasphemy for putting these two series in the same sentence, but series that do this very well are, well, 3 series that do it very well are One Piece, Black Clover, and Fairy Tail. If you've read those series, you know exactly which characters and character arcs I'm referring to. You don't necessarily have to kill a character to accomplish what I'm saying. And this brings me to why the narrative does have a need for a loss. So the bigger uncomfortable truth that we need to point out right now is that the Shinju need a win. Let's think about it for a second. Every one of Jura's creations, Matsuri, she was killed by Boruto. Hidari was defeated by Boruto, killed by Kawaki. Ryu was killed by Sarada. They all lost. Hidari is still alive, but through a stroke of luck because of what Jura did. They were introduced with tension and mystery and power, yet every single one of them was outplayed. Jura is the one who has only done anything of true significance. So far, the Shinju, they've been all bark and no bite. And in my opinion, that's a problem, because in storytelling, not just in shonen storytelling, but storytelling in general, villains do need occasional victories in order to feel threatening. Think about how the Akatsuki in Naruto became so iconic. It wasn't just because of the designs and the cool powers. They did kill Jinchuriki. They killed someone like Asuma. They forced the heroes to grow. They added real stakes to the story. Let's use a Boruto example, the most famous example. Kawaki, even though he's not a villain per se, Kawaki towards the end of Boruto Part 1 started racking up a lot of W's. He sealed away Naruto. He caused omnipotence to happen. Those are W's in the sense of the conflict that it created. It immediately shifted the entire tone of the Boruto story for the better. It's okay for the main character and the main cast to have setbacks. Even looking at Togashi's best manga, in my opinion, Yu Yu Hakusho. Toguro in Yu Yu Hakusho, he racked up multiple victories. He broke Yusuke's fighting spirit at one point in the story. Even in Sailor Moon, which was drawn by Togashi's wife. In the Dark Moon Circus arc of Sailor Moon, allies were picked off, allies were defeated in meaningful ways, and it raised the emotional stakes. Shonen antagonists, they build narrative tension by winning. Doesn't mean characters have to die or stay dead. There are ways to do it. I just mentioned what Togashi and his wife did in their mangas. Right now, the Shinju, they truly have 0 wins outside of Jura just aura farming. And without that, the story, in my opinion, does risk losing some tension. Someone important, in my opinion, has to fall. And if you put a pistol to my head, for as much as I love Ada's character, I think that someone should be Ada. And this brings me to why Ada's death, in my opinion, would elevate the story. So Ada's death wouldn't just be shock value. It would reshape the emotional landscape of Boruto to Blue Vortex. And here's how you could do that. It would raise the stakes for Boruto and Sumire. Boruto entrusted Sumire with critical intel and his sword, clearly foreshadowing a connection between the two items. Because Boruto's telling Sumire, this is technology that you eventually would have came up with. I'm just helping you get to it sooner. Use this to fix my sword. It's saying that all this is vital for the next phase in the war. This is also important for Sarada's character because of how Sarada did not hesitate to embrace Ada's character. Uchiha, they grow stronger depending on their emotions because their Kekkei Genkai and their chakra is strongly related to Yin chakra, which is spiritual energy. The stronger the hate, the stronger the love, the stronger they become. Ada's death could be an emotional trigger that pushes Sarada to grow. Ada's death could be an emotional trigger that pushes Sumire to grow, forcing her to embrace her role as the engineer for a new generation of Konoha. That is why she's in the Ninja Tech department. That is why she has been studying under Amado. The story's been setting her up to take a bigger leap, just as it's been setting Sarada up to take a bigger leap. It would fulfill Ada's wish for agency. By dying by choice, at least on her terms, if it's to protect someone like Sarada, it transforms her from being a passive figure who's cursed by fate into being an active participant in shaping it. Someone who's wanted love for so long but never got to feel it, acting in a way that reflects love, because sacrifice reflects love. That would be a full circle moment for Ada's character, and it would also give the Shinju legitimacy. Imagine the fear that spreads if Mamushi actually succeeds in killing someone major like Ada. Imagine if that leads to Mamushi getting the Simrigan. That's how you escalate a narrative. Suddenly, Jura's faction is not a joke. It's a genuine apocalyptic situation waiting to unfold. It would open up a path for Kashin Koji's character arc. Remember, Koji and Ada and Boruto, they share the labels of being singularities of fate. If one singularity falls, it puts the remaining ones, Boruto and Koji, under immense pressure, forcing the plot into a new phase where destiny itself may begin collapsing. The story needs more to raise the stakes, and this brings me to the irony in the poetry of her accepting fate itself. The cruel irony in this is that Ada's greatest growth may also be her downfall. She finally stopped clinging to a forced love, only to become a victim of genuine love for her friends, for peace, for life that she never truly fully got to live. She's only had a taste of it now that she knows that Sarada and Sumire are immune. She's having genuine connections with Sarada. She said she wouldn't mind dying if Sarada or Sumire killed her. But that's not how life or even shonen storytelling works. Death does not show up with a scheduled appointment. It shows up uninvited. It ruins your dinner. It leaves emotional trauma as a party favor. Death is basically like Netflix, where you're watching a series, you're binge watching a series you love. Like, I'm a big fan of Suits, so we'll use that as an example. You're binge watching Suits, and then all of a sudden Netflix asks, are you still watching? No shit, Sherlock, I am still watching. But it always pops up when you least expect it. Ada has had a security blanket with Damon. You would have to strip away that security blanket in order for this to work. Inoji, having that new jutsu, he's never been anyone that the manga has told us has this high level of potential. If he learns a jutsu that complicated in a day, what if something goes wrong? What if there's a step that he ends up skipping, or a step he doesn't fully have down pat? There's a way to get us to this, but I do worry that Ikimoto is writing with a little bit too much plot armor. He's shown the willingness to make certain characters suffer, but I feel like we're at a point now where he needs to do something to raise the stakes a little bit more. The idea of Ada falling, not at the hands of someone she trusts like Sarada and Sumire. It'll be something sudden, tragic, and devastating, something that pushes them to grow. If Ada does become a Shinju and that does lead to Sarada and Sumire having to strike down the Shinju version, then so be it. But we need something that will raise the stakes. Just like how when you look at Naruto's story, Jiraiya's death wasn't just about him. It was ultimately about Naruto learning to walk forward without his master. Ada's death, it would do the same thing for Sarada, Sumire, Boruto, Damon, and even Koji. So yes, I'm advocating that Ada might be walking towards her death, or rather she should be. And if she does go out, it won't be meaningless. It'll be a spark that reignites tension. It will give the Shinju purpose, and it will force our heroes, our lovable heroes, into Blue Vortex to evolve beyond the comfort that they've built. Because in storytelling, peace isn't always the destination. Sometimes it's the setup for heartbreak. And if Boruto's story is really about breaking fate, then Ada's death could be a moment that tests whether or not fate can be rewritten, or whether or not it just finds ways to repeat itself. That is the conflict I feel is being set up for someone like Koji to have 10 directions. He is changing fate, but fate itself is always something that a Naruto story is going to play with, whether or not it can be defied. Having someone like that who knows all the outcomes, that is trying to help you avoid fate itself, it has to be balanced out with some kind of a setback. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, clicking here on the left to check out this Naruto Explained video, or click here on the right to check out that Black Clover chapter 384, 385, and 386 review on my Anime Explained channel.